All
Hey
right.
Dan, hey, we are live.
What's up?
Not much, man. How are you today?
I'm good.
This is that's
Start
a
over.
weird way to say it. Yes, we are here. This is the podcast, episode 5.
Yes.
They live edition.
We are discussing the seminal 1988 cinematic masterpiece, They Live.
Yes. So let's get right into that.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So, first question. Are we keeping the glasses on the whole time or what are we doing?
I'm gonna give it a minute or two because I paid damn good money for these glasses, Dan.
Put on the glasses, Dave.
I put on the glasses, so but the glare is killing me because it looks stupid. So
I think we look kind of cool in like a dork sort of way.
oh, definitely in a dork sort of way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Let's see here. I think I might take them off. Let's do that. But
All right.
throw up our little graphic there for a second. Now it's really
These
bright.
are the darkest glasses in the world.
Look, man, the glass. This is a pretty good buyout on those glasses. They look close.
They're built really strong.
Yeah, they are.
These things are like,
Hey, man,
Yeah.
Amazon special, $8. Consume, obey, buy. That's. I thought that was
a little bit of
apropos.
irony. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So for this episode, I busted out all the stops and spent $20 on beer for it.
Yeah. All right. So I guess for anyone watching this, if you haven't seen this movie,
Yeah.
a lot of what we say probably won't make a whole lot of sense. But
No, and go see it. And spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the movie. So
yeah, and the ending. Anyway.
and what is it? It's like from 1988. I'm not talking about the ending. That'll get us a hard strike. This is for children, Dan. We can't talk about the ending.
What end? Well, I mean, not like the ending, but I mean like
You said the ending.
well, like the twist of the thing.
What a twist. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. You go first. What's on
Well,
your mind about it?
Oh, I don't know. I watched it. I watched it yesterday for like the first time in a long time, and I'd seen it a few times. I did a little bit of reading up on it. There's just a couple interesting angles to take on it. I think it's funny, just the general watching it now and actually having some historical reference knowledge in it, being it's like a '80s kind of go hating on the Reaganauts movie.
Yeah.
I didn't really pick that up. I mean, the first couple of times I've seen it, and then literally they have one of the aliens there, or creatures, whatever you want to call them, like giving a Ronald Reagan speech.
Yeah,
like,
he says it's
behind the
morning in
podium.
America.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he's supposed to be Ronald Reagan. I was like, and like in my
Yeah.
head, I knew that, but like it didn't click for the time period. And then that's like kind of actually I guess the thing that John Carpenter was kind of going for.
Yeah. Well, John Carpenter is sort of a known. I mean, that's been his. He was sort of a hippie anarchist, sort of kind of person. I mean, based on like sort of the political stuff in his other movies, Escape from New York and L.A. were both very sort of anti-establishment, kind of screw the system kind of thing, or not so much screw the system because of that, but describing all systems as inherently corrupt.
Right.
Right. So, it's not really surprising, but, and there's a little bit of, I don't know, watching this movie. Well, I should back up. It's like, it's one of those movies where it's like, it's either a very dumb, smart movie or or the smartest dumb movie. Because, so, part of that, that juxtaposition is what makes it charming and fun, I guess.
Yeah.
But like the idea that like, all the homeless people kind of live in this one little area, but they all kind of help each other. And it's sort of like, I don't know if it's supposed to be sort of an intentional, like, this is like what a socialist kind of society could be where everybody kind of helps each other. You know what I mean? And then the evil capitalist overlords come in and they literally bulldoze it to the ground. I don't.
Yeah, the opening scene with the homeless shantytown, whatever, struck me in a couple different ways. Meaning, hey, this movie's like loosely Los Angeles-y based, You would think Southern California, whatever, and like there's a lot of that going on right now. Except those homeless camps are not as well organized and well fed,
right?
And like they don't have porcelain plates to like feed each other off of. Like,
and they're not the result of evil capitalist empires either. They're the result of kind of borderline socialist communist policies, which create the shanty towns in like San Francisco and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like crazy government intervening policies on housing and things that make it impossible to pay for living in those cities.
Yeah.
Where it's just as easy just to get a tent and live under the overpass.
Right. I mean, like, is there a greater disparity between like the rich and the poor than in a place like the Bay Area? I mean, where you got like Silicon Valley and like all that, tech giants of the world.
Right.
And then it probably has like one of the largest homeless populations in America. Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's crazy. Yeah, and it's funny too, is like the movie definitely has the like you said, it is like the capitalists that have this stranglehold on society. As if like it could just happen on its own that way, as if like Apple or Google could like literally just kick you out of your house or like impose things upon you without the overuse of a government that can reach in and do crazy things, or like it can really, really impede on your life. As in like California is what's doing it in California.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that those companies aren't implicit in a lot of ways, but without the governmental structure there to tax, regulate, and control, that kind of thing doesn't happen, or can't happen, or it's very hard to happen.
Huh.
It seems unlikely that a corporation would just be able to drive the middle class into the ground en masse.
Well, why would they?
Well,
I mean, corporations thrive on a thriving middle class, right?
They do, yeah. Well, I mean,
I think it's kind of implied in the movie that like it's the corporations and the government. It's all part of the they live, right?
Yes.
So like the overlords. I mean, that's kind of what it's saying. It's that it's like, they're all in cahoots. It's a ruling party, So
yeah.
Well, I think what's really interesting about this movie, though, it's basically like a Twilight Zone episode kind of setup, right? This is exactly the type of thing you would see like 1962, like Rod Serling narrating is like, imagine if you will, the colonialism of tomorrow is not about different countries versus other countries. It's about planets. You know what I mean? And he says some sort of intro thing. And then there's like a hapless dude who discovers that like America is a colony, where they're strip mining the place for some larger thing. And so it's like, to me, I feel like a Twilight Zone setup, but like,
yeah.
It's one of those kind of things where, hold on, this fruit bar.
Fix it up, buddy.
Well, it's similar to like 1984 and like all these other sort of cautionary tales where it's like both the left and the right look at it as this is what can go wrong when the other side gets in power. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like, it was written as like a criticism of like sort of the rampant Reaganomics capitalist years, kind of like RoboCop,
is that part of RoboCop? It's been a while since I've seen RoboCop.
RoboCop's hilarious. You should watch it as an adult.
No, yeah, it's been a long time.
You start to pick up on a lot of the satire, where it's like, private corporations that control the police departments and they're basically in cahoots with the government. And then there's all these like fake commercials, so it's a criticism of like the intertwining of like rampant commercialism with totalitarian government, which of course kind of went over everybody's head at the time, but like kind of like how Starship Troopers was like, a big criticism of fascism and nobody noticed it at the time because they were expecting like a dumb movie and then it's actually smarter than it needs to be. But anyway, so like, if you're a Bernie Sanders type of person, you would say, oh, this movie exemplifies like, rampant human greed run amok. And it says, well, what happens if we were the ones that were the recipient of that greed from other people? How would we like it? Right. And then from a right-wing perspective, from a 2021 right-wing perspective, which hasn't always been the idea that like your corporate and governmental overlords are the ones pushing you, you know what I mean? That's not really a right-wing thing. That's more of a centrist.
Yeah.
Like, they couldn't have predicted in the 80s. Well, they probably could have, like the way that, algorithms and social media, like direct everybody to like They want us fighting with each other, so that they can run more ads on the content where people are arguing with each other. You know what I mean? And the whole point of their stimulus money, they're getting it to consume and all this, they're pumping into the economy and there's inflation. They want us to buy things. The only thing that actually is different is the marry and reproduce thing. So that's the opposite of what's happening now, because now the overlords are telling people that they don't need to marry and reproduce.
Yeah, that's funny. That was going to be the one thing that, like, out of all the signs, that didn't really seem congruent with anything that's getting pushed today. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, because or it's not in step. So I guess that was a thing in the 80s. Was it really? Like, I guess
well, not necessarily an 80s thing, but it's a classic sort of American dream kind of thing. But
I guess that, that's what I was going to say. It's kind of a chicken in every garage and a car in every pot, like 2.5 kids, kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, and the idea that, and we both know this as people with children, that when you're busy raising children and you're trying to work to have a job to be able to do so, you don't have the time or the resources to overthrow anything. So, a population that's raising kids and doing their jobs, putting in their portions, they don't have,
that's a good point.
Revolutions start with disaffected, childless single people, who aren't busy doing stuff, which is something that we talk about a lot, where it's like, we always talk about, like, there's the crazy people over here on the right wing, and then there's crazy left wing people, and there's kind of lobbying, like, remember the game Scorched Earth? Remember that game where you're just basically lobbying? So, like, that's the extremes. There's the big mountain in the middle of normal people who are busy, like, raising their kids, going to work and running businesses and just doing their stuff. And then these people over here are just sort of lobbing pot shots at each other, and we're all caught in the crossfire. So, yeah.
That's funny. That reminds me of, like, Paul, like Christianity from the Bible. Paul was like, you know what? It'd probably be good if you guys get married. I'm not saying you don't have to, but it'd be better if you didn't. But because, you got a lot of problems when you're married and you have kids and you have a family. You got a lot to deal with.
I never really understood that.
Oh, I mean, it's the same thing, minus it's just a revolution, as in you can serve better if you're free to move, more or less, and go from city to city and do that kind of thing. You're not tied down. No, you're not tied down. You're not the daily troubles of a
So I think all of those things, I mean, they go along with, we are their cattle, basically. So they want us participating in all that stuff.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we don't realize that the system is stacked against us, right? Mm-hmm. And that it's better to comply. Like the whole, like the cops and the various human characters who are in cahoots with the aliens. They're like, it's better for you, like you get a promotion, or you do all this kind of stuff. And so, I mean, that has a lot of relevance today, because, there's a lot of people who, like if you listen to various sort of centrist, classical, liberal, conservative, whatever personalities, like they're all the time getting questions from like college students. They're like, what do I do when my professors are just trying to indoctrinate us into, they're putting us in sort of an activist factory to churn out small versions of them. Like, do I stand up to them or whatever? Or do I just toe the line and just sort of like, there's a lot of different kinds of answers, right? Like, it's, in many ways it's easier to just go along and just say the phrases and, put a black square as your profile picture and all this kind of stuff. It's like, if you just go along with it and toe the party line, it'll work out great for you, but.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Well, it's also guys. It's funny that, like, you've already kind of touched on it. It's like, if you're a Bernie Sanders kind of guy, you're this. If you're a right winger or a centrist kind of guy, this. Like, the movie's really pliable to whatever the power structure is. Like, you can see that control. Like, it's that's what makes it very good.
And everybody will watch it and paste whoever their personal villain is onto the bad guys.
Yes, that's perfect. Like, it's really well made that way, because it's not overbearingly over obviously one point of view. We're saying this has to be the bad guy, so you can see it in a million different ways from a million different point of views, and in a lot of ways they're probably all pretty accurate to some degree. I mean, there is a lot of manipulation and a lot of control and a lot of propaganda from all sorts of groups in our society, government, cultural, business, any sort of thing, pop, definitely pop culture and all that stuff. So it was pretty funny. I was trying to think of ways to pin it down to today, and there's a million ways to do it, but there's also that's frustrating. Actually, there's too many ways to do it. It's not
Yeah.
like it's not a copy and paste into 2021. Donald Trump is not the evil alien. I mean, friggin' Joe Biden's closer to the evil alien in reality than Donald
Yeah.
Trump.
Well, and at least in terms of policy.
But
You know
no,
what
I
I
meant
mean?
I meant in terms of acting like a human and like acting normal.
Oh,
That's-
so
that's
you're
what-
saying that Trump would be doing a horrible job at impersonating a human because he's so bizarre?
Okay, they're both doing terrible jobs at being humans.
It's
'Cause
like
they're
Kang,
both-
it's like Kang and Kodos from
It
The
is
Simpsons.
exactly like Kang and Kodos.
So if you had Trump and Biden next to each other, and you're like, which one of these is an alien doing a poor impersonation of a normal human being?
Yes, that's
Which do you
so good.
You got,
Yeah,
this, you got
which one
you
is
got
it?
a person who can't really put together sentences, and then you've got like a insane person over here.
Yeah, that's super good. That's really funny. That's exactly what I'm going for there.
Yeah.
We should make a "Don't blame me, I voted for Kodo" shirt and have it Donald Trump and Kang, or Donald Trump and Joe Biden, like little space outfits.
That's a good
Get
idea.
on that, Dan. You're the Photoshop expert.
Not that level of expert.
Yeah, no, not me. No, nothing. We'll commission that to somebody. That's
But like the
yeah.
idea of like even without the socio-political stuff, the idea of us of taking like the West, well not only the West, human beings' history of colonialism and basically subjugating other cultures, for economic gain, basically. And then transplanting that and making us the recipient of that, but we don't realize it, is a really interesting idea. Like,
So like what you're getting at is like that the aliens come to they're there for entrepreneurial reasons to make money for control, and they use us to gain that in the movie. And then
Yeah.
you're stating that as a mankind phenomenon where a conquering nation or a group of people would I
Yeah.
guess
well, it's almost
would
like
take advantage of and exploit another group for the same
it's
reasons.
almost like we've been trying for thousands of years to figure out the formula for subjugating another population, but we could never make it work long term because people would always inevitably revolt and they would want their own rights and their own freedoms, and they would want to benefit from the fruits of their own labor, right? Mm-hmm. But it's almost like these aliens, whomever they are and however long they've been here, they figured it out. The way to do it is to make people not know that they're being subjugated, right?
Right.
Kind of like the Matrix, like people needed to buy into it, right? So you sell people a dream where they buy into it willingly, and then their mind doesn't even want to wake up, right?
right.
So that's and
Yeah.
somebody could make a point that that's why the overlong fight scene is a metaphor for every human's inability or refusal to wake up to something that they don't want to. So that's why it's not just a stupid long fight scene. You could like make like a college paper about like, the poetic symbolism of the fight scene. It really typified it.
It's the inner struggle of man to not wake up to the reality around him. That's good. That's pretty funny. Yeah, no, I was thinking about Matrix parallels too. Just being unplugged as opposed to putting the glasses on and being plugged in, and then seeing the world for what it really is, and then being able to get back into it, like plug back into the Matrix and still be aware. Now you're aware with that knowledge, as in then you put the glasses on and you're aware. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. I can see that.
Yeah.
Even though I guess the Matrix now is supposed to have 18 different meetings from the twin brothers that started it that you would never think are what the movie's about, but it's okay.
Sisters now.
Sisters, excuse me. Oh no. I just totally misgendered those dudes.
We're gonna get banned.
I didn't mean to do that.
I tell you what, though, it's really interesting. Not to get off on a whole Matrix thing, but like, I watched the first Matrix recently. Levi and I were watching it, and like, obviously, ever since it came out, everybody talks about how it could be all these different things for different people, right? Even the red pill, blue pill phraseology gets used by everybody.
Oh yeah,
But-
because there's like 18 different versions of that pill now.
Well, right. It's just a term that people use for a person just sort of waking up to reality instead of their programming.
Right.
Right. Which, so anyway, but like watching that movie and then thinking about like where it came from on a personal level from the Wachowskis, and I don't know if they intended it purely as a trans metaphor, or if it was designed to be sort of a vague metaphor that could be pasted onto a lot of different stuff. That makes the movie really interesting. You know, like how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Matrix works on the same level as They Live, being that it's vague enough to paste whatever villainy you want to put on there and whatever heroic stuff you want to put in there. Basically, you can see yourself. Everyone sees themselves as Neo in one way or the other. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to do in a million different aspects in your life if you wanted to.
The one thing I always didn't really like about The Matrix, or not that I didn't like it, but like it didn't really work for me personally, was like it's similar to in They Live, where Neo never really seems very conflicted. You know, he starts out as an anti-establishment kind of character who's going to buck against the system and never waver in his belief to do that. And so, like, to me, you know, you could do an alternate version of The Matrix where Neo had a lot more self-doubt in him. Like maybe you took some of the Cypher story where he's like, I don't know, maybe it's kind of cool to be plugged into the Matrix. Like, I feel like we would all be tempted by that possibility, and you put that into his hero's journey kind of thing. Might make it really interesting. And the only reason I thought about that was because watching They Live, which is obviously much less stylish and a lot less sort of mature in its acting, you know, is that, what's his name? Nada, the Roddy Piper's character. Like, you don't really get any backstory on him as to why he hates these. Like, as soon as he puts on the glasses and he just sees that there's he immediately goes into like, I need to find a gun and start blasting. Like that's as far as he's thought.
That's literally it. Yeah, he's just That's a funny point. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the movie takes a really abrupt turn because like the first 40 minutes, or it feels like 40 minutes, is just him kind of. There's a lot of walking around,
taking the glasses on and off.
Yeah, and that scene is like 10 minutes long, and then like once it gets to like action movie mode. Then it goes directly into action movie mode. And then like the last 30 minutes is like, there's this whole galactic, it kind of, the pacing of that movie is not really the greatest.
No, it's not. But
they rush a lot. They rush a lot of the cool plot and story stuff at the end in the last like 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's true. Like he's just in the grocery store or in the bodega or whatever. Then he just goes off on the one lady, and then it's it. Then the cops are there, and then he's punching everybody in.
Formaldehyde face.
Yeah, formaldehyde face. Yep. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, man, it's a fun movie to watch, and I don't know, it's a.
I'll tell you what you could do. You could make it would make a really cool like. Well, you couldn't do it now because people would just be like, oh, it's just like They Live. But if say that movie had never been made, you could take that short story and make it into like an 8-part miniseries. You know what I mean? Like you could do like a serious version of it where you really get into like. Sort of the future world building of it. Like I feel like the movie itself, had they had like a larger budget and maybe more time or something like that, or a better script, they could have delved into like how this is kind of like where our world could be like in the next few years. You know what I mean? Like, because what's his name? Frank, Keith David's character. He's like, there are a lot of little details in there that are actually kind of smart. He's like, I got a wife and kid back in Detroit.
Back in Detroit. Yep.
Right. Where they probably closed some, car factory that had been there for, 100 years or whatever. And like, and then he was like, well, I used to work in Dallas or wherever he said, and the work just dried up. Like you could delve into more of the, like, now that you have like technology where you could, CGI, like a modern version of a landscape, you know what I mean? Kind of sort of like a dystopian future. Like you could really delve into the economics of like how the highs and the lows are exacerbating. And you could get into like, you could and then you could delve into like the different characters who are working with the aliens, and you could have, you could paste on some really interesting human drama in there without having to go full like goofball like they did. But
yes, that would be good as like an 8-part miniseries. I'd watch that. I would watch that as a Netflix special with a possible re-up of a season 2. That would be cool.
You'd have to have Roddy Piper, like old man, like playing one of the villains. In like full alien makeup.
You'd have to superimpose CGI him in. He died, man. Did you know that? He died.
He's dead?
Yeah, man, he died a couple years ago. Can't do it.
I didn't know he died. Wow, okay.
Hulk Hogan can do it. We'll let the Hulkster get in there.
The last thing I saw him in was he showed up as a wrestler in like a couple episodes of Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hilarious. Yeah. He like barely talks. He's like
Uh,
I mean, that
yeah,
movie
that,
makes no. It's hilarious to me that the smart parts of it are juxtaposed with things that are absolutely just completely stupid. Like his random one-liners that he just makes up, and then
Yep.
like how many takes did they do of those? Like, oh yeah, oh, I think like they came up with the kick ass and chew bubblegum line. It was like a line that he had wanted to use like when he was a wrestler, and so Carpenter was like, yeah, well, you should use that in the movie. Like, I guess that was like the sort of the late '80s was when Carpenter kind of stopped giving a shit about a lot of stuff. You know, he was like, yeah, sure, we'll just.
he had made his money. He was doing good.
It's living off those Halloween residuals.
Hey man, it was a think piece. He was just trying to get an Oscar with They Live. It did really well in Cannes or Cannes, whatever that movie festival is.
Isn't it? Is it Con or Can?
I think it's Cannes, but I have really no idea because I don't follow. I don't follow that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, man. If Roddy Piper was alive, that would be fun. He could definitely do a cameo there. But it's all right. I should have found out how he died. But yeah, the little short story, I read that. It was like 6 or 8 pages on a PDF. It's super short. It's like it's very, very short. And the opening, like the first page or two, is like the movie's like shot for shot, like the first 8 paragraphs of that story for the opening scenes of the movie. Huh. It's pretty funny. Like,
so it goes into, it's the whole same story though. There's like a dish on the top of a TV studio or whatever, or
yes, he eventually gets into the TV studio. They don't like set it up like that. There's all of a sudden he just enters a media complex and destroys the tower. Or actually, I don't know if he gets down to the transmitter. He kills all the media people that are aliens. Yeah, but it starts off, more or less. Yeah, just like the movie. It's pretty funny. It just jumps through it really, really quick. He doesn't die at the end. He does die at the end, but not from that. He just, because the alien told him he would die the next day, and he dies, and they don't explain why. It's called 8 o'clock in the morning. And they like, so the first time
is that when he's supposed to die?
Yes, he's supposed to die at 8 o'clock in the morning. So he puts on the glasses. He's around. He gets kind of the just around the underground conspiracy stuff. And then they get hip to him. Then they send a message to him like, "You're going to die at 8 o'clock in the morning." He's like, "Well, maybe I can go wake some people up before I die." So then he goes out and tries to start convincing people. Yeah, it's very short. It paces with the movie, like really sporadically. It's funny.
But the person who wrote that got a nice payday for it.
I guess it was written in like the 60s or the 50s or something. It was written a while ago.
So it's probably supposed to be some sort of communist metaphor?
I don't know.
Everything else in the 60s? Or was it sort of an anti-capitalist kind of thing? Like, because in the 50s and 60s, it's like American economy, everything's booming. And then you start to get the real creation of like the American dream suburban house kind of life that everybody consumes and stuff.
Yeah, there's still all the consume, obey, the marry and have children line is in there, or the marry and procreate or whatever. That line is in the short story. So it's probably the same.
I was right in the middle of the baby boom.
Yeah, so it's probably the same feel. It's probably the anti-capitalism thing as opposed to anti-communism.
Or maybe it's less specifically capitalism, but more colonialism.
Maybe.
Right, because. Well, I guess the movie doesn't really, or the story doesn't particularly advocate for any particular set of, other than like we said, the idyllic presentation of the homeless shanty town, where it's like everybody's getting along, and it's like this could be something, right? But it's more of like, it would be interesting to ask the author, were you thinking like this as, is he coming from some sort of like Frankfurt School of postmodernism kind of thing, or is he looking at like, the British Empire was like recently deceased, and then like all of the various empires of Europe had all kind of crumbled post-war. So like maybe that's where it came from,
I do not know.
Because the guy in the movie specifically says like we are their third world, and so like once they get done with this, they're just going to move on.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't do any more research than actually. I thought it was pretty good that I read the original short story.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Now that would get you an A for participation in. This was like high school film criticism class.
Like I did a slight internet research, and I read 8 pages. felt pretty good about myself.
Yeah, or like, all right, who watched the movie and who read the book, and then nobody knows the differences between.
Yeah, what is it with aliens coming and just depleting all the resources? It's like Independence Day. Come on, man. Just
Well, it's a pretty obvious, story idea.
I know. It's just
Because it's like you think about like the history of what have we done? What we do is we move around the world and we gradually use up stuff.
But do we?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a finite amount of gold and coal and stuff in the world.
Are we out of gold and coal? I don't know, Dad. I think we're still doing all right on coal.
No, but it's not unlimited. You know what I mean? So the idea that's like, if you took like bad versions of us and we had more technology, what would we do? We'd go around the cosmos and use up stuff. I mean, that's how we do to each other here. So it's a cool idea. I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons Independence Day works, is because it's scary, because it's like, once you realize the motivations of the aliens, you're like, that's a believable motivation. They want our planet,
Truly, it was us who were the aliens.
The real enemy was man.
It was man. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny though. The alien tropes are silly, but either way, I see it. It's fine.
Well, it's a question of like, if you're going to make do you want to make your sci-fi villain so foreign that it becomes a fear of the unknown, or do you want to make the villain relatable?
Yeah.
Right. There's 2 different ways to do it, because you have like, that's like a relatable thing. You're like, all right, well, they want our stuff. Okay, well, we use stuff. I understand that. As opposed to like, the alien from Alien.
Yeah, Alien.
That's like literally like, has no eyes and is just like this completely unknowable creature.
Yeah.
You don't even know what it wants. It's just a pure like chaotic being. And that's what makes it scary. And then as they added more backstory and explanation of the creature in the later movies, it became less horror and more like action thriller kind of thing.
Yep.
But the whole point of, that's unknown versus knowable. That's a common.
Yes. And then you have The Thing, which is both mimics knowable and completely scary and crazy. Another John Carpenter film. Awesome.
That's arguably John Carpenter's best movie. I mean, I think by any normal metric, right?
I mean, I wouldn't argue against that, but I'm, again, not a film aficionado, but that movie's amazing. That's really good.
It really holds up. I mean, mostly because of the effects, but also because of the acting, and all that stuff. It really works.
It's a very creepy movie in general.
It's the same guy, Keith David, in that movie too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that guy gets around. And then he was the guy that did the voiceovers for like the Navy.
I know.
Like in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Join the Navy. Find your future, or whatever it was that he was saying.
I think he was.
That would be hilarious if he just in one of those commercials. He was just like, "Put on the glasses, man."
I think he was the stepdad in There's Something About Mary.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you get the Frank above the?
I knew it. That's where I knew him from.
He was also in Armageddon. He was like one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or whatever.
Oh, okay. That's a small role. But yeah, that's good though.
Yeah, but it was great though.
How crappy would they lived have been if like it was not Rowdy Piper. Like
that's a good question, because it arguably, the crappiness of that movie comes from him.
Yes.
Some of it does. So it would be a different flavor of crap. Maybe not the same kind of endearing level of, you know what I mean?
Right. But I mean, I don't know. Like, who else could be in it? I mean, it doesn't really matter. Any 80s superstar.
Yeah, like but it wouldn't be. Yeah, I mean, maybe the advantage that he'd never been in a movie before, meaning he wasn't like a recognizable face.
Yeah.
He, other than like his sort of kind of perfectly sculpted hair, which isn't terribly believable for a drifter with like no car and no place to live, and his hair's all nice.
Right.
But like, if you had some sort of like name, like, like a Stallone kind of person, I don't know if it would have worked.
I mean, he could have got Kurt Russell to do it. I mean, Kurt Russell's got some bad deadpan
I think they were going to, because you know him and Carpenter are buddies, but he was like, dude, you've been in like 5 of my last 6 movies.
Right. I don't know. I was watching it. I was like, God, he's so bad in this movie. But it's fun bad, and that's kind of good. That's just crazy though. Like it's such a big movie. It wasn't a big movie, but I mean it's a big studio movie, and John Carpenter wasn't like a slouch. Like you think the studio would have been like, what are you doing here? Can we get the C list here instead of the D and E, the WWF guys?
I think it was his. I think I read in the trivia that like it was his idea. He wanted to get a wrestler. I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, it maybe the thought that was like because it was the first time they did that. Yeah. Right. I mean, it paved the way for like all the the Rock and all these other people to do it. But like
Hulk Hogan and Suburban Commando. Come on.
Yeah, but that was later. What? Right? No.
Yeah.
Well, Hulk Hogan
it was later.
Hulk Hogan was in Rocky 3. And that was way earlier.
That was way earlier.
So that blows that theory out of the water. But anyway,
that's all right.
I don't know. Maybe he thought it would bring over some sort of crossover appeal. But the thing is, it's like, I don't know, was your average wrestling fan who's used to watching like WrestleMania, are they going to like be like interested in a sort of socio-political anti-colonialist sci-fi movie?
Probably not. I don't know. So
they're sitting there in their trailer with their beer being like, they're trying to control us, man. No. Now turn the TV back on, man. I'm good. Get me some of this delicious Bud Light. You know what I mean? There's an irony there.
You're really bent on this anti-colonialism thing, aren't you?
Well, it's just, it really strikes me as like, it was something I never really noticed before, but it's, I don't know. I think it's just a cool idea.
No, it's funny.
Go ahead.
It's funny to me because like in the 80s, if the criticism from Carpenter was that you had the media, large corporations, and the government all tied together.
Yeah.
That was the case. And it was, and it is still today. I don't know. It's just what I was gonna say was like when people like now when you hear that, or like if a Bernie Sanders is like big business and they're the ones that are trampling on your rights. Again, nobody ties those two in with the media and the government. Everyone's mad at something, but not all three. Does that make sense? I don't see a lot of that. Like, because
I think I'm getting it. Tell me more about what you're saying.
But I guess like you can be mad at all three, but there's now these huge divisions of everything. So like you can be mad at you have right wing media, you have left wing media, you have right wing business, you have left wing business, you have right wing politicians, you have left wing politicians. So now like
there's like 2 versions of everything.
There's 2 versions of all the bad guys, and like it's the trifecta. But back in the 80s, you still had this. You had all 3 together. But it was Republican controlled mostly during the 80s. During the 90s, it was mostly Democrat controlled. Well, with Clinton, and then back to Bush, and then back to Obama. But that was more back and forth. And I think with the advent of different news outlets, you now had a sharper split where there's now 2 sides of that coin. Where there was always that coin. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what I'm trying to get at. It's funny because like people will look back and go, the 80s were terrible if you're like a left wing kind of person, but it's the same.
Then there are people who look back and think that Reagan was the greatest American ever.
Right, and then vice versa. Now you have the same Democrat. Now you have a Democrat controlled government institution, Democrat controlled media, Democrat controlled institutions of business, and the right wingers will hate that.
Right, because depending on who you talk to some people and they're like, man, I'm really scared about the future, man. Everything's just going down. You know, the inflation, the economy, and not ever since like Biden took office. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then you got other people that you talk to, and it's like it's their morning in America. They're like, I can finally breathe because the darkness is over, and it's like,
not yet though, because I can't take my mask off. Well, you can now, but
I walked around without my mask all day today.
Look at you, Dan.
Well, I did an experiment. I was taking Avi to gymnastics, and I was like, I saw one person in there, some random guy not wearing a mask. I'm like, they don't have signs on the door anymore. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk in here. And I wasn't really close to anybody, but I was just walking around doing my thing with no mask on, and nobody gave me any crap about it. But everybody else was still wearing masks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Okay, well, I had it in my pocket and just in case somebody said something to me. You know, I wasn't worried about getting into some sort of verbal altercation at the gymnastics studio, but it was just like, you know, I was thinking it was like, tell me you only listen to NPR without telling me you only listen to NPR.
You got both your Band-Aids from both of your vaccines on still, just hanging on to those Band-Aids. Like,
Yeah.
look at them. Look at them. I got them
I
both.
have my laminated vaccine card that you can like whip it out anytime somebody.
I did it. I Instagrammed it. Look, I Instagrammed it live. You can watch me. Here it is.
Yeah, I checked all the boxes. Do I get to vote now?
Yeah. Do I get my stimmy check? The old stimmy check. No, that's funny, man. Because like, I don't know. It's like, so when I watch this movie, I immediately embed all the government, all the bad stuff of the government on the aliens. That's just how I see it. Like,
Yeah.
Obey, consume. Like with consumption, like you get all these tax credits and all these incentives and all this upcoming UBI stuff that's going to be happening. Basically, just feeding you money so you can pay for things.
Yeah.
You don't even like, and it's funny because like none of the, correct me if I'm wrong, none of the flashing and the subliminal messaging is work. You know what I mean? I know money's a thing, consume's a thing. Like there's like the one that flashes like, this is your God. It's like the guy holding cash. I mean, I guess implied in it, you have to work to get it.
That's a good point. Right.
That might not mean anything. It's just something I'm noticing.
But it makes sense though, because if you wanted to subdue a population, you wouldn't try to instill into them values.
Right.
Because you might accidentally build some character along the way. So
yeah, you give them
you give them only the most immediate thing.
Yes.
That worked is merely a tool to get stuff.
Yes, a substance.
Yeah.
Level
like
kind
you
of
wouldn't
thing.
the subliminal messages, it wouldn't work if all the subliminal messages were like strive, improve, get up early.
Right.
Because those things would create a society full of people who, are about their own purpose, and then they wouldn't make very good subjects.
Yeah, and that's one of the main criticisms, a lot of people, or I would have for sure, on welfare, transfer programs, subsidies, that kind of thing. It discourages your work ethic. It really does. I mean, if like we've talked about this already, like, so if the unemployment benefits are right at where minimum wage is, you're like, well, why would I go back to work for another $2 an hour? I'm making $15 an hour doing nothing. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So, but that allows you to consume. Okay. It allows you to kind of not be real aware and not involved in your society and making actual changes in things. You're just kind of a passive actor in that you're a, what's the term? NPC, a non-playing character.
Yeah.
You're not really doing anything. You're just getting fed a pill. It's like Soma in 1984. Brave New World.
That's Brave New World.
Brave New World. Yeah. You're just taking your pills and having your lab originated sexual encounters with people. And
yeah. Have you watched Logan's Run recently? The answer I'm sure is probably no, but
no.
It's another really we should talk about that one sometime, because it's a lot of the same kind of things. It's kind of crappy, like just from a filmmaking craft perspective.
Yep.
And it's kind of dumb in a lot of ways, and it's very overly simplified. But the concepts underneath the surface are very interesting. But you've got like a whole society, like, it's that movie where like once you're 30, you kind of go to this little thing, and then right. And so what they want is all these sort of young, attractive people to just sort of consume and do stuff. And, and well, not really marry, but like reproduce. Like it's not exactly the same, but it's sort of, yeah.
I'm with you. Yes. I would be down with that.
It's not terribly good, but
no,
it's kind of enjoyable.
No, that whole era of movies is hit and miss for sure.
Well, there was this like era of sci-fi, before it became big business, where it was like kind of under the radar. It was kind of similar to like horror, where it wasn't really like a mainstream thing. So a lot of these people could kind of get away with doing, as long as the budget was low enough. Like the Planet of the Apes movies.
Yeah.
Like you watch those, like me and Levi watched them all last year. And like, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in there. And they all have like these terrible downer endings that are really depressing. But it's like each one costs like, $500,000 to make. And so the studios are like, yeah, who cares? Go nuts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but then once, Star Wars came out and then it gradually started to become big business. Now you got to have these giant tentpole features that can appeal to all demographics. But
yeah. And now we're here. Now we got Marvel movies that get crapped out every 4 weeks. Basically do the exact same thing. Just big, flashy.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Marvel movies. They're good.
I know, Dan. You're a mindless consumer of shitty entertainment.
Well, I think there's some value in the Marvel stuff that's never been done anywhere else. Like the idea of, a series of 22 movies or however many they made.
Don't say that they all go together, because they don't. You're a liar.
No, not in terms of the story. That I don't care about.
All right,
because
just making sure.
You could watch a 3 seasons of 24 and be like, look, if you want a story, there's plenty of story. The more story doesn't make something better. What I like about these movies is that it takes these characters that it introduces in 2008, and then by the time you watch them over the course of all these in 2019, there's a lot of actual character development, and I could do a whole thing on the personality tropes of Captain America versus Iron Man and how they intertwine, how they switch, and all this kind of cool stuff. But that's a really impressive thing to do in a series of movies that also has to have flashy explosions and something that's able to, because that's the type of character development you don't normally see in something that's marketed towards 10-year-olds.
Yeah, no, I'll get you. I'll get you there. That's fine.
So I don't know. There's quality there. There's some average entries, no doubt.
All right, buddy. Look, we're coming up on 45 minutes here. Any last thoughts? Things you want to?
Yeah, I don't know. We got any comments or no?
Nope. We got to figure out this comment thing. I don't think it's working right.
There are 2 people watching this.
Yeah. I think one of them was me trying to figure out if comments were coming through. Who would have thought that talking 1980s B-rate horror with a political overtone theme?
Yeah.
No one's super interested.
No, but look, we can always, if we ever run out of things to talk about, we can always do socio-political ramifications of sci-fi movies.
This is true.
Because there's so many of them, and there's all kinds of food for thought there.
Yeah. We can get back to more of a relevant topic next week, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure something will come up.
There's always something. It's also good to ignore that for a little bit.
Dave and Dan complain about inflation, version 5.
What's the deal with airline tickets these days?
Yeah.
Not really.
Who's Matt?
Hey. Hi, Matt.
That name sounds familiar.
Thanks for commenting, Matt. Welcome to the show. As we're leaving, I appreciate the comment,
Thanks
buddy.
for nothing.
I'm glad somebody said hello.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where you commented from.
There's an F next to it, so.
Thank you.
Basically, it's like this: the fewer people watch, the less likely that we'll get canceled, because we're not a threat to the establishment. Oop, that's me. Hello. I lost Dave. For those of you just joining us.
This is the perfect time to leave. I was trying to leave, and then Matt started talking to him. Hey, thanks for listening, Matt. Matt, do you have any questions for us now that we're talking to you while you're typing? Because if you don't, we're just going to stop. No,
this is
no
like
pressure.
communicating with Morse code.
No pressure, buddy. No pressure.
Been listening all night. Stop. Would love to hear your thoughts on stop. Anyway. All right, we're being anticlimactic. We should probably call it.
Yeah, I guess so. There's nothing else going on. So, all right, man. Well, have a good week. Talk to you later.
Later.
Oh, wait. Cool. Let me
put on the glasses or start eating that trash can.
Put on the glasses. All right. Later.